to the signature of dedicated agreements between the European Union and ICAO. We also had last year the first dialogue on capacity building and implementation support, which was followed by dedicated region-specific meetings involving the regional offices to understand where are their priority and we can support. And we also had some joint initiatives. So, for example, the joint IPAC on ECARES, and I think yesterday, together with my colleague from EASA, you gave a nice Sky talk about this. Also, we are organizing a joint symposium on RSO together with ICAO. So these are just a few initiatives, and we see this as only the beginning of a partnership, and we look forward strengthening our cooperation with ICAO on capacity building and implementation support.
Thank you, Delphine. And, you know, we talked about root causes and how important it is to understand them. So you mentioned the Sky Talk that I did with IASA yesterday, and we talked about, you know, it's important to have powerful analytical capabilities to truly understand the root causes. We talked about the need for safety intelligence and not just data. So I wanted to mention those two things. And then also thank you for bringing up RSOOs, because again, back to my earlier point, regional cooperation is so important. We know RSOOs and RAIOs for accident investigation, you know, that is part of the strategy on how to tackle the diverse challenges that we have with the states. Is again, we need to do it regionally, not just state by state. So thank you for that. John, how about from your perspective?
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. So I just want to go back to your question. So I think there's two key words in your question. One is coordination, and the other one is partnership. So I came from Ottawa, so home for me is Ottawa. So to get here, I had to take 4 different flights. I had to go through 3 different airports. My airspace was managed by different ANSPs, different industry. So as you can see, overseen by different states. So we work in an environment that is conducive to collaboration. And we're also very lucky because, you know, ICAO is a UN agency. We all have the common objectives, which is making sure that every flight is safe and secure. So there is no argument there. So we're very prompt to working together, and we have to remember that when we talk about capacity building, technical cooperation, we need to follow that example. We need to leverage the expertise. So a few examples that, you know, Canada has witnessed over time. Working with partnership is critical. I look at the different expertise in this room. I've met individuals yesterday, this morning. It's outstanding. You know, like there's so much expertise on stage, in the audience, and I think there's an opportunity to leverage that expertise in a coordinated way. So looking at ICAO, it provides the benchmark of what, you know, brings trust in the global system through their SARPs. So again, we have worked with ICAO on IPAC developments, which is a great way to provide awareness, quick tools. You know, it doesn't require a lot of state resources, and it has a real impact. Another area is joint delivery of capacity building. So we have worked with different partners in the EU, in the United States, and actually North Africa, where we've basically, you know, leveraged our different capabilities. So for example, in some cases, a state would provide the training, and then Canada would provide funding for the acquisition of equipment. So it's not different initiatives, it's very similar outcomes, but again, we're going beyond the traditional, you know, project by project. We're looking at what are the outcomes that we need to achieve. Going back to effective implementation, I think, you know, a lessons learned from us is, you know, effective implementation is really achieved when there's a continuous partnership. So it's not necessarily about the numbers of activities being delivered or the amount of money being announced in a symposium. It's really about the outcomes that are achieved. The goal here is that when we are done with assistant, or we're looking at assistant, we have to assess, you know, what is the self-reliance of the recipient? Have we achieved that desired outcome? And I think that is very, very important. So a few takeaways for me here is don't compete with each other. So if your state is involved in capacity building, it's not a question of who's going to provide more capacity. Let's work with each other. Let's complement each other's efforts. Don't compete with ICAO. ICAO has really, really good programs. And the world is big enough, like I said, the ecosystem is big enough that there's room for everyone. Third is the recipient states needs to be involved in the design process. I come back to my earlier reference to root cause. It's a lot more effective if we're, avoiding an off-the-shelf product just because we're good at it, but we actually understand what is needed. So getting the state, the recipient state involved from the get-go is super, super important. And two, instead of focusing on your own guidance as a state, ICAO has the global guidance, and that's what we should be using to make sure that we have the consistent approach and messaging. Thank you.
Thank you, John. You talked about joint delivery, and to me, that's the beauty of this symposium. It's all about putting together partnerships, understanding what different organizations can bring to the table, and working together to solve one particular challenge, focus on one particular project, but with the skills and resources that different partners can bring to the table. So I love that idea. And then you also mentioned results-based, which is very much the direction that ICAO is moving. It's what's in our strategic plan. It's what the Secretary General has really been emphasizing for the organization. It's all about outcomes, right? And that's how the whole strategic plan was developed for the next 25 years. Outcome-based. How can we ever achieve those aspirational goals of net zero carbon emissions and zero fatalities in international aviation? It's by being outcome-based, so thank you for that. And Maurizio, how about from a CICEO's perspective?
Thank you. In our country, one concrete example of effective implementation support is the development and regional deployment of the air traffic flow management portal. This solution was initially developed by Brazil's Air Navigation Management Center, CGNA, which is responsible for air traffic flow management at the national level. Recognizing common challenges across the regions, particularly related to availability and exchange of ATFM data, Brazil proposed expanding this capacity to support other states in the region. In coordination with ICAO, some regional office, the management of the platform was transferred to ICAO, transforming it into a regional asset available to all states. This approach reflects a collaborative model where a national solution is scaled up through ICAO to benefit the broader community. Today, this ATFM portal is used by all some states, as well as several states from the Caribbean region. It enables the standardized sharing of ATFM information, enhances situational awareness, and supports more efficient traffic flow management across borders. So, this initiative demonstrates how regional cooperation combined with ICAO's coordination role is essential and can effectively accelerate implementation, optimize resources, and promote capacity building among states. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Air traffic flow management, it's not something we talk enough about, honestly. It is something that requires regional and cross-regional cooperation, and it is becoming ever more important as we are seeing the traffic growth that we're talking about, anticipating 12 billion passengers by 2050. We have to use our limited, most precious, resources are probably our most precious resource. Next to that, it's airspace, right? It's a finite resource, and we have to use it very efficiently. And so we are truly seeing, as a matter of fact, we're going to be hosting a symposium this year in 2026 on air traffic flow management, because it's really becoming a critical topic. We have a lot of the SARPs that have been developed are to move us in that direction of traffic, more efficient traffic flow management. So thank you for what you're doing in Brazil. Again, and a shout out to all the states out there who've had to pick up the traffic flows as we've had to close so much airspace over the last months, particularly in the Middle East region. This is where efficient traffic flow management and cross-border collaboration becomes so very important. So again, it's a different type of support we're talking about here, but no less important that we need to give the states. So thank you for that perspective. We don't talk enough about it. Okay, so let's go back to my RDs. Matau, how can ICAO better align its efforts on implementation support with states' national development plans?
Thank you, Michelle. Yes, as we mentioned, that Asia Pacific is very diverse, but that we need to really address the state's needs, really what the state needs. So because of the diversity, the requirements are quite different. So most important, I think that as my colleagues Nicola mentioned, that one not fit all. So we have very big country, and this is almost, I said, 2 countries, more probably 40% of the population in the world, but we have some country which is very small. So we have to address the need of each state. So we need to, now we are working on, it is developed, or I request our office to develop a country file for each state. So from the ICAO point of view, we need to know what is really you need from the state. How many airplanes of this state? Not only civil aviation structure, but we need to know what is the aviation situation there, how many aircraft, what is runway, how many resources they have, and what is policy of this country, what is the areas we need to support. So we need to know. We cannot do all for 39 states. That 39 member states not really necessarily need this, but maybe half of them, or even more than half of them, need to have. To know, we need to address each of these states. So I think that specifically, we need to know really how to help the state, but we need to understand what is really the situation there. And I give you an example that we mentioned about the Pacific small island states. We have 13 members there, and those countries really almost far away, and lots of time difference, and the communication is difficult. So from that, ICAO established a regional office, Pacific Liaison Office, we call this, from the ICAO approved in almost, Nicola did this, a Pacific study in 2019, and then we finally, almost 3 years ago, we established office. So how to address the challenges of those regions? We need to find a solution. We cannot really work like workshops or conference, talk too much. But we need to really make a plan for all these 13 states to meet the ICAO standard in the next 5 years. How to resolve this? We have to have a plan. So that's why we developed the Pacific Small Islands Implementation Support Roadmap, which is it takes 1 year. And we developed those plans, and this is including lots of proposals from this plan. And we have implementation support plan. We have a project proposed in this plan. So this plan is already discussed within ICAO, and we have already, from this week, we're going to circulate to all these PCs, all the 13 member states of the PC states, then including one of the very important organizations there, PASO, Pacific Aviation Safety Office. And then we'll discuss. We'll want the comments, and then we hope in May this year we will adopt it by the Pacific Small Island State Regional Ministers Conference of Aviation agreement with them. So within this plan, I mentioned we have project. Firstly, we need to really have the regional oversight organization there. It's not possible to meet all the ICAO standard for those many small island states. We need to have an a regional oversight organization, RSOO. We need to have a cooperation there. So this is one of the recommendations from ICAO. Certainly, it depends on the state to support. Secondly, we need to develop the regulatory system there. Many countries don't have their regulatory system, or their system regulation based on other states. Thirdly, they need to have people, and they need to have inspectors, qualified people, and the next generation aviation professionals. They don't have staff. So we are planning to set up training centers there in Fiji to train the controllers, mechanics, other related professionals, not only for not only civil aviation authority, but also for the junior students graduate from high school, and then we will hopefully we're offering the free training to them to give them more trained controllers, mechanics, staffs, and to support their development. I think this is really a concrete proposals, and hopefully we can, in the next 5 years, we can really make this region, this region to meet that ICAO standard. You know, APAC, we have 3 coast caps to cover almost most of the states, but only the PC states, Pacific Small Island states, we don't have the joint program, supporting program. So with this, we cover all the technical support for all the regions. Thank you.
Thank you, Matao. So Matao hit on something I think that's very important to emphasize, and that is the need for good planning, right? We need planning that looks at near-term, mid-term, far-term needs. We have tactical problems I know that states need to solve right now, but we also have to be strategic, including how are we going to build the next generation of the workforce. That's something that's going to take time. We need to start when children are young. So planning's very important, both for air navigation, to plan that infrastructure, which will take years to develop, the safety plans, and ICAO has the global plans that are the foundation for the states, the Global Aviation Safety Plan, the Global Air Navigation Plan. Those are our foundational documents that should be guiding what the states need to be focusing on, taking what's applicable to your state and your region, and then working with our regional offices to develop your specific plan. So thank you for that. Nicola, how about, what would you like to share?
Thank you, Michelle. I will build up on what my colleague Matao said, and I think we all agree here on fundamentals. We have limited resources. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. But we have a difficult question I can ask it to you. With our limited resources, what should we focus on? Regional solutions, sub-regional solutions, or national solutions? Tough question, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what your answer is. And what we say, maybe the wisest thing to do would be to have a balanced approach, because we have, whether you take APAC or UNAT, we have activities that gather all our states in our accreditation area, but then we focus. APAC is a fantastic example because they have South Asia, Southeast Asia, North Asia, the Pacific, so you have sub-regional approaches. But then national projects, national approaches, we tend to go through directly to jump to what we call implementation support projects. And this is where we fail. One thing I haven't heard on this panel, but I'm sure it was addressed in other panels, is the country strategy. It's not something which is embedded in our DNA, in ICAO, but it's in the DNA and the daily work of multilateral development banks and of a number of UN bodies that work closely with them. So being in aviation comes with a lot of advantages, but with one vulnerability. we tend to see ourselves in the center, and in the center of attention. We're not. If we go back a few years ago during the pandemic, it was obvious then aviation was vital to restart the economy, to restart the world, and though we were not heard at the government level because there were other priorities. I have one state in mind that is in our accreditation area that currently goes through an unprecedented conflict. And they have many issues to deal with, just for their survival. Transport may not be the priority. And within transport, aviation may not be the #1 priority. So that calls for a shift in the way we do implementation support, because again, if we want solutions that are backed by governments, parliaments, especially to have authorities being strong employers, and again, not one size fits all. You know, I'm in a good position to say that for the Pacific Small Island developing states, there's no national authority. Maybe Fiji, or correct me if I'm wrong, Matau, Papua New Guinea, maybe Solomon Islands can do on their own, but the others cannot. It's simply not possible. So whether for safety oversight, security oversight, they need a regional organization, but a very strong, robust, but they also need to have accountability individually as member states. But in any case, what's key is really, if we want attention and we want it being understood at government level, at parliament level, we have to stop jumping and presenting just aviation-centered project, aviation-focused project. We have to anchor what we do in national development strategies. And the COSPA is a good example, because from the design phase, it is anchored in that. The document, the beginning of the document, doesn't talk about aviation safety, does not even talk about aviation. It talks about development pillars. And this is key to ensure relevance, ownership, and again, the magic word, which is sustainability. I think many of us, all of us, have mentioned these words. So these 4 development pillars that we have chosen to target and to use, to promote, and to link our activity, our aviation activities, to what the government may prioritize, because Uzbekistan, in this case, has many other priorities as a landlocked developing countries. Even in transport, road, railways, it's not that we're in competition, but in terms of resource, there is a certain level of competition. This is why we have a very close dialogue with the government, but also with the World Bank. So these are connectivity, sustainable infrastructure, strong institutions, and human capital. There's no aviation in these words, but aviation can be a key driver, a key multiplier, and an example, actually, of implementation in both cases. So connectivity is obvious for us. It's enabling safe, efficient, and resilient air transport for trade, tourism, integration. That's true for passengers, but that's true also for air cargo, for example, for landlocked country, maybe even very large countries in general. We have the largest landlocked developing country in the world by size. It's Kazakhstan. Population, we have His Excellency here, the representative of Kazakhstan in ICAO. The population is not very large. This is totally different from South Asia or North Asia, where we have very large states. In Central Asia, we have very large states, but very low population density. So it's not like China or India, it's practically the opposite. But air cargo, then, having these states as an aviation hub can be a huge asset for their socio-economic development. That's connectivity. Sustainable infrastructure is to support resilient, future-ready aviation systems, and Mauricio will not contradict me. This is absolutely essential for air navigation system, but this is also important for airport, and especially adapting them to climate change. Strong institutions goes back to what we said, is not just enabling the establishment of strong authorities being competitive employers, but also good governance, strengthened governance. And finally, human capital, again, Matau insisted on that because APAC is one of the most, I think, engaged regional office in that, is really to develop, but to find solutions, sustainable solutions, including using the regional and local resources to develop skilled professionals through training and knowledge transfer. And this is why we have this capability through ICAO project, GATS, and the Trainer Plus to develop capacity in each state with their local instructors. And I know Matao is working hard on this. So together, again, this is really what makes aviation not just a driver of socio-economic development, but a multiplier of socio-economic development. And this is how we can get attention from a prime minister. This is how we can get attention from parliament, even in some countries, and definitely attention from multilateral development banks. This partnership is essential with MDBs, the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, the African Development Bank, and all the others, not just to mobilize resources, but to align our activities with broader financing frameworks and cycles, because we are not good at doing that. And it's not them who need to adapt to us, but it's the opposite. So developing aviation in line with ICAO strategic goals requires, and that's also very important, a whole of government approach. We as regional directors, we are the ones that represent ICAO in the field, in our states, in our accreditation area. We used to talk to Director General of Civil Aviation. Now we engage more and more with ministers of transport, but not just with ministers of transport. We engage with the whole government. That's finance. We did that in Uzbekistan, by the way, for the coal spar. That's trade, and that's, of course, for environment now, especially for SAF production. We engage with ministers, vice ministers in charge of energy, in charge of environment, of course, but more and more with tourism, education, if we talk about training. I'm sure Matao has thousands of examples. And a fantastic tool we have, I think this has been addressed in other panels, the Civil Aviation Master Plan. Various regions in ICAO have started to have examples. We talked about some prominent examples in Africa and Latin America. I'm very pleased that thanks to the trust that the government of Kazakhstan, and thanks to Kazakhstan, Rahmet Ülke, that they placed on us, we have the very first Civil Aviation Master Plan development project in the UNAT area. This Civil Aviation Master Plan plays a big role to align stakeholders, to prioritize investments, to connect aviation, again, what you said, to national development goals. So I'm encouraged to see that we are developing more and more. I'm very also grateful to the government of Greece, Charistopoli, for hosting a workshop next month in beautiful Athens, not just for Greece, but we're inviting all the states other states to join if you're interested. And we'll talk about the benefit of civil aviation master planning in the context of the support to national development strategy. So in essence, we are making our best efforts to link capacity building with long-term, not just socio-economic development, but socio-economic impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. I think that's a brilliant message. I know this session will be recorded, and I encourage you all to go and maybe steal a soundbite from what Nicola was saying about how you do need to promote aviation in the much larger context of what's important to your state. And as you said, social and economic impact. I think Matao mentioned some states where aviation contributes up to what, 40% of the gross domestic product. I mean, this is really significant, and this is how we need to sell aviation within the state, because again, we talk about limited resources we have in aviation. It's because states have limited resources overall, and let's face it, we are competing with other needs, and so it's very important, I think. That was a powerful message. Thank you, Nicola. Okay, so let's see. I think I'd like all the panelists to answer this next question. In your view, what activities or initiatives would you recommend to ensure no country is left behind? And Delphine, we'll start with you again and just go down the row. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I think we all recognize that ensuring that no country is left behind is absolutely essential. But at the same time, the reality is that most states and organizations are facing resources challenges. And over the past years, we have seen a number of states and organizations reducing from a horizontal perspective their support, their external aid, and so on. And this is also impacting the support provided to implementation support in aviation, whereas the needs of the state, they remain as high as before. So how to overcome this, and I'm sure it will not be a surprise for us, one of the way forward is collaboration and partnership. And I think ICAO is uniquely placed to have a strong role on that, to foster cooperation between ICAO and the donors, but also to foster cooperation among the donors in order to prevent duplication, to seek synergies, for example, to build joint projects. You have mentioned, John, that in some cases, sometimes a single donor does not necessarily have all the technical expertise or capability to build a project, but by working together, we can certainly maybe better address the need and pool the resources. Another element, and it was raised, I think also by several panelists, is trying to go beyond the traditional aviation ecosystem, trying to reach out to the investors, be it public or private, to highlight, as you have mentioned, the benefit of aviation, but also the opportunity of development in aviation, for example, with sustainable aviation fuels. And yesterday we heard a very interesting panels with the multilateral development banks. And I think this kind of engagement from the organization with the external world and trying to foster cooperation is definitely recommended in order to trying to ensure that no country is left behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Delphine. John?
Yeah, so we've been at it over an hour, so I hope the audience is still awake, but just to check in case. No, I was standing here on stage and I was reading some of the words on the different banners, and I kept noticing words like influence, unity, leadership, but the one that struck me the most is one sky, one vision, one future. That for me is super important. It's all about collaboration. So in terms of, echoing some of my colleagues' comments here, I think civilian aviation is something that we need to do better, and it has a direct impact on our capability to expand some of our support provided to states. Often we talk about, the repercussions of, not investing in aviation, but if we just adjust the storyline to make sure that, part of our storyline is that aviation is an economic driver. So there are lots of benefits to it. You can access all sorts of partnerships within your state, but also externally. We've reached out to International Development Bank. We've partnered. We've provided assistance in Latin America in that regards. But just a little bit more on the horizontal side. I think when we talk about No Country Left Behind, it has to be in all aspects. So as you talk about, net zero, climate, vision to reality, so that comes with amended standards, new standards, and it starts with, how ICAO managed the entire program. So we have to look at a compatible program that, states with, fewer resources can actually also be able to implement those standards effectively. The last part is, for donor states, there's mutual benefits here. It's not only the recipient state that is receiving, but again, one sky, one vision. As a donor state, there is benefit to us as well. We're partners in this, so I think we need to change our vision that, investing in capacity building and support is a global investment. It's not a state investment. And I finish off with just to reiterate some of of ICAO's vision, in-kind contributions to ICAO, either through financial donations or expertise. I think as a state, we have that shared responsibility. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Mauricio.
Thank you. In our view, we have to take into account 3 key points: partnerships, investments, collaborative models. First, to effectively support the No Country Left Behind initiative, one key takeaway is need to strengthen partnerships with private sector, airlines, airports, and industry providers play a fundamental role in enabling development, in particular in regions where public resources are limited. All countries have budgets, in particular Brazil have no great space to investments. A second aspect is the creation of an enabling environment for investment. This includes clear rules, stable regulatory framework, and compliance to ICAO standards, which together make the aviation sector more attractive and sustainable. Finally, it's important to promote collaborative models between states and industry. It's a great challenge because sometimes it's not coordinated properly, the interest of industry and the states, but it's necessary to do that. In Brazil, the partnership between DCEA and aviation stakeholders has allowed us to respond more effectively to the growing demand from the aviation community, in particular after post-pandemic period, when the growing of air demand was great enough. This collaboration has supported the implementation of solutions that benefit both user and industry, contribute to a more efficient and dynamic navigation system. In fact, all these three key points can effectively support no code left behind. Thank you.
Thank you. And how about from the RDs quickly? And then we'll try to take maybe one or two questions from the audience.
Yes, very briefly, I think that No Country Left Behind, as I remember, probably is adopted by the Assembly 2016. It's almost 10 years. So we do not only put this on the slogan, No Country Left Behind. We need to take actions. We need to really have actions. How can you really, make the No Country Left Behind? With the limited resources, certainly we mentioned about this. But I think that we mentioned so many projects supporting states. I think for just now, our colleagues mentioned about the cooperation and coordination among the partners. Certainly in my region, that is very unique compared with the other 6 regions or 5 regions globally, because in Asia Pacific, we don't have regional organizations. We don't have ICAO, we don't have LACAC, AFCAC. We don't have these organizations. Certainly we have IATA, Council, ACI in our region. But I think, so that's why ICAO play a very critical role for coordinate all these partners. So coordination, cooperation, regional cooperation is the priority particularly in the APAC region. So I'm happy to report to you that, for example, in NSPs, we are talking about NSPs. We have 40% of FAR of APAC, 40% of global FAR, and we have lots of contingencies, challenges of these geopolitical issues. But we have no coordination, cooperation among the NSPs. They are working independently. They don't know each other. They only send an email or telex. This is not really what we need. We need to cooperate. So that's why we established the Air Navigation Service Providers of Asia Pacific. We call the AAC. We already have established for 2 years. And more than half of the NSPs participate. And they are sitting together twice a year to discuss how to cooperate, to work together, and then to address these contingency issues, address these challenges, and in helping each other for the training. Secondly, I think this is one of the initiatives we are working. Secondly, we have this first ever Asia Pacific Training Symposium in Asia Pacific. So I may mention so many about training because this is a basic for the aviation. We need to have people. So we have so many resources in the APAC region. We have lots of universities. We have lots of civil aviation training centers. And we have lots of support from our manufacturers, from EASA, FAA, and many global authorities which is capable to support. So we need to really get together, sit together for enhanced cooperation and helping each other so we can sharing our training experiences, offering training to other states. So that is also one of the really initiatives. And we need to work on, this is No Country Left Behind. Not only talking about putting on the paper. And certainly, we also have another initiative, probably is unique with other region. We call the combined action teams. That those, it is cost recovery. Some of them is offered by the SAFE Fund, but those activities that we send our expertise from the regional office, but plus some expertise from the state to go to each of the state to support them, to review their system, give them recommendations, and then we do the follow-up actions. Sorry to take too much time. Thank you.
Nicola, we're about out of time, but anything unique you'd like to add?
A lot has been said, but I think in my tradition I will challenge you, because then you talked about activity, but I think maybe activity is not the right question. So going back to No Country Left Behind, what is it? Is it a goal? It used to be a principle or a slogan. Now it's a goal. Is it a mindset? And No Country Left Behind in what? Does it mean that when we give training, we have to give training to all countries? I think something is missing. And maybe there's a multiplicity of clarification that are needed. We have a global aviation system that is interdependent. As the world is, nothing is independent in this world. Safety is interdependent. Security is interdependent, and so on and so forth. So definitely, we have to tackle that as a priority. But I think the huge step, a new step that we need to take, and that's where country strategies again matter, is that No Country Left Behind should show also no country left behind in using or unlocking the full potential of aviation for their sustainable socio-economic development. Whether you're in a small landlocked developing countries, whether you're in a small island developing states, in a large country, you should have equal opportunities actually to, as a state, as a community, as an individual who wants to join this community, to do so. So again, to challenge a bit your question, I think we have to stop talking about activities. We have to stop focusing also on the outputs. As you said, the business plan now is focusing on outcomes, and this is what we all gathered here to agree on. That is impact and sustainable impact that we're looking for, not just for aviation, but for aviation as a driver and multiplier of socioeconomic development. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. Well, audience, I think we're out of time, but we do have a networking break next, so certainly if you have questions, we'd be happy to chat offline with you. And please join me in giving our panelists a round of applause and thank them for sharing their perspectives and I think lending some really excellent recommendations. Oh, I do, okay, one question. Oh my goodness. I shouldn't start this, but okay. 2 questions, that's it. Okay.
Good morning. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Gaëtan Roberge. I'm in consulting for MRO. So it's my first visit to Marrakesh in Morocco. So beautiful city, and thank you for the venue. It's really quite informative. Michelle, I agree with everything that was said so far, as the comment and observation. Thank you very much. I think we're dealing with a blind spot right now when it comes to aviation. It's all about MRO. Currently, we know that there's 28,000 aircraft currently flying, and the growth is going to be the most significant growth that we're going to be dealing from now to 2042. Eventually, the worldwide fleet is going to be reaching more than 42,000 aircraft. So the only thing I'm concerned is I think there's a blind spot when it comes to aircraft maintenance. And I'm just curious to hear, when it comes to critical priority and no country left behind, is there something that needs to be looked at strategically to make sure that all the operator, the emerging market, will have enough capacity to maintain their aircraft? Thank you.
Thank you for that. I don't know if any of our panelists in particular want to answer that question.
Sure.
John?
Sure. No, that's a good question. And first of all, welcome to Morocco. It's been my 7th time and I love it. So your question is very valid, but I think in terms of priorities, that is a shared responsibility between the state and its stakeholders. This is an ongoing discussion. We're still addressing some post-COVID challenges, including the recruitment. But looking at at yourself, that self-assessment to make sure that you maintain that required competencies for the integrity of the system is super important, and it has to be ongoing. So that's one angle. In terms of blind spots, I think I would argue that there's more than just one. You look at the new entrants, for example, the competencies of tomorrow, are they the same competencies of today? So I think you have to do a little bit of analysis. You have to follow the market. You have to look at your workforce. You have to look at your business lines, and you have to assess, are we going in the right direction? So to your point, I think the blind spots are known, but there's a lot of distraction in the system, and sometimes we have to go back to the basis in making sure that there is no diminishment in competencies to protect the integrity of the system. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And I'd promised one more question, and then the rest will take offline.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I am the new Director General of Civil Aviation in Madagascar, ACM, appointed at the end of December 2025. So today we are discussing about No Country Left Behind and the opportunities to build a more collaborative ICAO implementation support program. The reality is that Malagasy civil aviation has suffered from corruption and poor governance for many years, well before I took office. I give you two recent examples. An unauthorized flight took off from our capital, Antananarivo, bound for Mauritius, without authorization or a flight plan. There is also the case of the 5 Boeing 777 diverted from their original destination, and it constitutes a violation of the Chicago Convention and a threat to global air navigation safety. Many inspectors employed by the ACM have left Madagascar in search of better career opportunities abroad. So we are facing a shortage of qualified safety and security inspectors. Therefore, within the framework of this ICAO implementation support program, I am appealing to ICAO and all civil aviation stakeholders who can assist us, as we, ACM, urgently need assistance and training from Madagascar, particularly for inspectors. We are requesting a grant if possible, as our budget is limited and the ACM has a lot of debt due to the poor governance I mentioned earlier. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Baba. So I think Matau had already mentioned that we do have support to train inspectors, so maybe offline you can chat a little bit and hook this new director up with how we can get you some support because again, training inspectors is certainly very, very important. We need trained safety inspectors, so thank you for that. Okay, with that, I think we'll wrap up. Again, thank you all for your attention and your active participation this morning, particularly after such a late evening. It's great to see the audience that we have here today. So thank you very much and have a wonderful rest of the week.